You can find this podcast and others at Gun Rights Radio Network, gunrightsradio.com. Podcasting freedom.
Hello and welcome to episode 45 of Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of WaltInPA.com. I am Walt White, and I want to lead the show off by telling you about this weekend. I had a tremendously busy weekend. I wasn't quite sure how the show was going to pan out, whether or not I was even going to be able to make it happen this week. And basically, I had a bunch of family stuff going on. On Saturday, I drove out to see a cousin of mine. He recently got married down in Cancun, and he was having a garden reception over the weekend. And I guess normally it would have been an hour and a half to 2 hour drive, probably closer to an hour and a half. But I got stuck behind an accident, so that hour and a half drive turned into, I don't know, probably 2 hours and 15 minutes. We hung out there for a little while, and then it was a good smooth sailing drive home, an extra hour and a half there. It was a pretty long day all in all. And on Sunday, my daughter celebrated her second birthday. It actually wasn't her birthday. We had the party a few days early because her birthday's in the middle of the week. But then, it was another very hectic, busy day. It was a lot of fun all weekend, but I was just so busy I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen with the podcast. Now, when I went to see my cousin, it was kind of interesting at the wedding reception. I had seen a lot of family that I haven't seen in a few years, and it was a lot of fun getting caught up, and it was amazing how many people were aware of Stogie Review. I'm a co-founder of Stogie Review. The cigar site's been around way longer than my blog has, or even this podcast has. Actually, the blog is a lot older than the podcast, but we've been doing Stogie Review since about 2005, so a lot of my family is aware of it. They see my Facebook updates and things like that. And they've come to ask me about it over the years. And this year I was kind of curious as to how that was all going to play out, because in addition to the cigar related stuff that I'm posting on Facebook, there's also a lot of gun related stuff. There has been a tremendous level of gun related stuff since I spoke to them last in person, because it's been a couple of years. And no one asked me about guns except for one person. My uncle, we were talking for a few minutes. He comes over and he says, "Hey, I see you've been doing a lot of shooting, and I was going to send you an email, but since you're here, I thought maybe we could talk about guns a little bit." He says, "I have an old 32 that I've been keeping in a drawer for the past 30 years. I want to get something more substantial for around the house." Him and his wife are getting a little older. They're in their late 60s, I think. My uncle's retired. I guess he's just looking for something to keep around the house just in case, with both him and his wife getting kind of up there in age, they want something to be able to protect themselves with. So we talked a little bit about the different options, and he's leaning more towards getting a revolver because of simplicity, and we just kind of talked about the typical pitfalls of both. If you get a revolver, your wife may have trouble pulling the trigger, since it's probably going to be relatively heavy, unless she can pull the hammer back and then shoot it single action. So really depending on what you're doing. But by the same token, if you get semi-automatic, she may not have the hand strength to be able to rack the slide, so you may need to rack the slide and store it cocked and locked, so to speak. He wasn't comfortable with that idea at all. So there were a couple of hurdles to get over, but we talked, and I told him to go check out one of the local gun shops. There's a few in the area, but I'm not sure if any of them do rentals. So I told him, do some looking around, see what you can find rental-wise. If you can't really find anything, give me a call. I'll make the long trip out, and we'll make sort of a range day out of it. You can play with all the guns that I have, and I don't have a very large selection. Most of my stuff is 9mm and mostly don't know that it really fits the bill of what he's looking for. The full-size pistols do, my M&P and my Glock, but my bodyguard, that's I would think that's way too small for a keep it at home caliber. There's really no reason to go with something that small unless you need to slip it into a pocket. The same thing goes for my Springfield XD subcompact. There's really no need to go with something that small if there's no need to conceal it, if all you're doing is keeping it around the house. So with any luck, I'll have an uncle who purchases. He's already a gun owner, but hopefully he'll find something that's comfortable for him, and he'll pick up a gun and join the ranks of us. He's already a gun owner, so I can't really say he joined the ranks of our gun owners, but you get the idea. But one of the interesting things about this whole thing was that I was a little on the fence about discussing firearms at this reception. I didn't know if anyone was going to see some of the Facebook stuff and bring it up, and I was really shocked when my uncle brought it up, and there was a very positive attitude towards it. There was that healthy curiosity about it. I was afraid that I was going to kind of be condemned. A lot of my family lives in or around the Philadelphia area. The bulk of them grew up in Philadelphia, and then as they got older, they either moved to the outer suburbs, stayed in the city itself, or moved over to Jersey. So I'm expecting this big horde of anti-gun folks that were going to get all over me for my views, but it was surprising, and it was a very pleasant experience to discuss it with my uncle and not have any of that anti-gun or animosity kind of thing going on. So all in all, it was a really good weekend. As far as guns were concerned, it was great having that conversation with my uncle. It was awesome having family time. It was just a tremendously busy weekend, but I had a lot of fun. Earlier this week, I was talking to Tom from Fill Your Hands, the blog that I talk about from time to time. Actually, I've been talking about it a lot as of late. But we've been conversing back and forth on Twitter, and he sent me a note. He says, "Hey, check out Front Sight magazine. Look on this page. There's a woman holding a gun. Her name is such and such." He says, "I had a chance to shoot with her last month or something at the big Georgia USPSA match that was going on." And he was saying, she's a really good shooter, and for fun, she shot the entire match weekend. And he said, and she still kicked my ass shooting weekend the whole match. And I thought that was kind of funny. We talked about it a little bit. I said, I'll definitely check it out because I haven't received my copy of Front Sight magazine just yet. And coincidentally, like 2 or 3 days later, I think it was Friday, Front Sight showed up in the mail, and the first thing I looked at, every time I pick up Front Sight magazine, I just turn right to the reader's mailbag or the member's mailbag section, and I look at the letters to the editor. A lot of times it's some pretty interesting questions where someone has found something in the rules that isn't quite clearly defined. So they've got this particular situation going on. They want USPSA to clarify it. Can I do this in division that? And there's a lot of clarifications, and sort of the rules get broken down a little bit there, and I've always found that kind of interesting. The solely opinion pieces are kind of interesting too, how readers will write into the magazine and say, hey, what are you guys doing? Every time you cover such and such a topic, you always bomb it, or something, something along those lines. It's always entertaining. Well, this particular episode, I start flipping through the members' mailbag, and I read this opinion piece from this guy out in, I think he's in the Montana area. But anyway, it's the letter is entitled "Draw the Line, No More Short Shorts," and with a topic like that, I'm thinking, okay, where is this one going? So I start reading it, and basically he's complaining about women going to larger matches wearing overly short shorts and being scantily clad or scantily dressed. And I thought, wow, this is really odd. Why is this guy sort of harping on this stuff? I've never seen anything remotely close to this at local matches that I've shot. Now, granted, he's talking about this stuff being featured in Front Sight magazine, this stuff being all over YouTube, this stuff being, being a problem at larger matches, level 2 and level 3 USPSA, all sanctioned matches. So, my first thought is, okay, maybe I just don't have the experience that this guy does, where he's seeing it as often as I do. So we'll just kind of cross off the local matches from my list of potential where to see scantily dressed women. And I'll start paging through Front Sight magazine. So I grabbed all of the Front Sight issues that I had handy. I was missing the last issue. I don't know what I did with it, but the issue that the letter was in, Volume 2 and Volume 1 of this year, none of them have anything even remotely close to inappropriate in them. So I'm not quite sure where this guy is seeing inappropriate dress featured in Front Sight magazine. So the next thing I did was I started looking at nationals, like Production Division nationals, single stack nationals, some of the larger USPSA sanctioned matches. And I guess it was single stack, the more recent of them. Most of the competitors were wearing pants there, so I started looking a little bit further. I pulled up Women of USPSA, the 2011 Production Nationals, and there was a video montage put together of all the women shooting, and there was nothing even remotely close to being inappropriate there either. So I put together this little article for my blog, and because I can't get you people to comment on a regular basis, I decided to do, I phrased the subject line of the article as, what did I call it? Look at them girls with the Daisy Dukes on. For one, so that you get the lyrics to that song stuck in your head, and maybe it drives you batty like it has been driving me nuts for the last couple of days. And that whole sex sells angle, I thought maybe we'll bring people in and I can inspire some people to comment. But I outlined everything that I just talked about in that article, and I explained that I'm not quite sure where this guy is coming from. I think he is addressing a problem that doesn't exist, in that these women are inappropriately dressed, because everything that I've seen, sexy, absolutely, inappropriate, hardly, not at all actually. And I just thought I would talk about it a little bit on the blog. I got a couple of interesting comments on Facebook and Twitter, saying that this guy must be an older gentleman and not quite used to seeing a little bit of leg on a woman, a third of his age, or however it works, or half of his age. But it's drawn some pretty interesting stuff on Facebook and Twitter. And if you're interested in seeing my thoughts and seeing the video that I was looking for, this stuff in, head over to waltnpa.com and look for the 69 Boys referenced post title. Last but not least, before we get to the actual news content of the podcast, I want to give you that usual reminder of the contest that I've got going on my blog for a signed copy of Shoot, Your Guide to Shooting and Competition, written by Julie Golub, and let you know that this contest is remarkably easy to enter. It is so easy to enter. In fact, I'm really shocked that there are as few entries as there are. So head over to waltnpa.com. Up top of the newly designed website is an image slider. When you see this giant picture of Julie Golub's book show up, click on that big giant picture. It will take you over to the contest announcement page, where you can then submit your entry. It's really simple. It's purely opinion. You can't get it wrong. It will take nothing more than a few seconds of your day, and when you're finished, you will be entered to win a free signed copy of Shoot, Your Guide to Shooting and Competition by Julie Golub. So don't waste any more time. Pause this podcast, head over, take care of that right now so you don't forget, and then come back and unpause it. Sound good? I'll even wait for you if you don't want to pause it. Giving you a couple of seconds here. Don't mind the dead air. I'm just waiting on you. At the beginning of this podcast, I made mention that I had a really busy weekend, and as a result, I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen with the podcast. Well, I didn't really get to start looking through news until this morning, and it was really sporadic throughout the day. I had a relatively busy day. So I've only got two pieces of news for you. One is kind of short and sweet. The other one is kind of interesting and aggravating all at the same time. So let's get into the first one. It's one that's been kind of making the rounds as of late. I've seen a lot of references to it, and I didn't see all the references to it until after I had already put it in the show notes. And since I only have two items to begin with, I didn't want to cut it just because everyone else was doing it, which normally I would do if something is being overused. I'll try to avoid it. You'll get that content elsewhere. There's no real need for me to discuss it as well. But you're probably going to hear me discuss this for, I don't know, the fourth or fifth or sixth time if you're reading up on news and gun blogs. But this one is entitled 14-Year-Old Boy Shoots Phoenix Burglar, and this comes from CBS5AZ.com. It goes on to say, Phoenix. Police say a 14-year-old boy shot an intruder who broke into his Phoenix home and pulled a gun on him as he was watching his three younger siblings. The shooting happened Friday at a home on West Minton near 51st Avenue and Baseline Road in Levine. Police officer James Holmes said Saturday that the teen and three younger siblings, 12, 10, and 8, were at home alone when a woman rang the doorbell Friday. The teen didn't open the door because he didn't recognize her. Soon after, the teen heard a bang on the door, rushed his sibling upstairs, and got a handgun from his parents' bedroom. When he got to the top of the stairs, he saw a man breaking through the front door and point a gun at him. The boy shot a 37-year-old man who is in critical condition but is expected to survive and be booked into jail. That is the end of the article. There's a little bit of a video clip that goes along with it. It's just a news reporter standing in front of the home talking about what was going on. Then they do some neighbor interviews. One interview they did with the boy's uncle. His aunt and his uncle were standing out in front of the house, and the news crew was talking to them, and the uncle says, I'm really surprised that the boy did something like this, but I'm really glad that he did, and I'm glad that his father trained him for something like this. There was a neighbor that was interviewed, and she said that she's really glad that the boy got out okay. She was kind of proud of him, kind of a thing. The general feel of the news article, the actual news video, the interviews, it was all really positive, and I'm really glad that it was, because it would be really easy to spin this in the negative light, by saying a 14-year-old alone at home watching his younger siblings, a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and an 8-year-old all had access to a firearm in the house. That's grossly irresponsible. It's really easy to say that when you're when you're standing on the outside looking in, but this article, or this whole event, just goes to show you that proper education of children with firearms and how to treat them not only potentially saved one boy's life, but 4 children in all. The boy was able to keep his wits about him and use that firearm to protect, everyone in the home from this deranged individual that kicked down the door and was pointing a gun at a 14-year-old kid. I'm happy that the kid got a shot off and the bullet went where it was supposed to. The deep, dark side of me kind of wishes the female would have been directly behind him, and maybe it would have been like 2 for 1 kind of a thing. But it just takes a really low down, dirty individual to kick down the door of a home that's occupied by a bunch of children. Ordinarily when you think of children, you think, they don't have a fighting chance against an adult with a gun. It's like taking candy from a baby kind of a thing. And it's just horrible to think that someone could actually do that with a bunch of children. God knows what would have happened had that individual got into the home and taken control of those kids. What were his intentions? Was he just there to rob the place? Was he there to do something to the kids? This whole thing is just really deranged and messed up, and I'm glad that the kid was educated enough to, for one, not answer the door when there was an adult on the other side knocking and trying to get him to open the door. I'm really glad that he had the wits about him to gather up his siblings and take them into another room in the house, and I'm really glad that he had enough knowledge about what was going on to get his parents' gun when that individual kicked in the door and pointed the gun at him in the first place. Just a really bad situation all the way around. It's a shame that this kid's going to have to live with the tragedy of taking another human life, but he did what he had to do, and he's alive thanks to this. His siblings are alive because, again, you really don't know what was going to happen. You have to assume the worst in a situation like this. So all in all, really bad situation for the kids, but I am just very pleased that all of them made it out okay. And I hope they catch that woman, because as far as I'm concerned, she's just as guilty as the guy that's in critical condition, because she played a major role in this as well, trying to get the kid to open the door. This second news article comes from policeone.com, and it is entitled "Chicago Gun Buyback Nets 5,500 Weapons. No Questions Asked, Policy weapons will be destroyed, several military-grade machine guns amongst those turned in. That's the headline in this subheading. So this goes on to say, Chicago. Some of the guns turned in at a St. Sabina church on the south side Saturday came wrapped in blankets or packed in backpacks. Other tinier handguns were taken out of designer purses and shoe boxes and turned over. Jean Jones, 64, unwrapped her handgun delicately from a towel she pulled out of her large brown purse. It was her late husband's weapon, and she had never handled it before. "That's a killer right there, that small gun," said Chicago Police Chief Kevin Johnson, a member of the citywide anti-gun enforcement team. "It's a North American Arms .22 caliber," Johnson said. "That bullet is so small it will bounce. It will travel and you'll have internal bleeding going throughout your body." The gun was one of more than 5,500 weapons, including several large military-grade machine guns, replicas, and BB guns turned in at the city annual gun buyback program. Those handing over working weapons were giving a $100 MasterCard gift card, while those that brought in replica or BB guns received $10 gift cards. There were so many firearms turned in that the police ran out of gift cards and said that some people would have to come back next week to collect. While officers were pleased with the number of weapons turned in, the total didn't surpass 2007, when a record-breaking 6,700 guns were brought into nearly 24 churches. Jones was shocked to learn how dangerous the tiny weapon she brought in was. She kept it in the back of a closet in her home, but she has 2 grandchildren and she's glad to have it out of the house. "I never knew how to use that. Oh my God, the safety didn't even work," Jones said. "I would have never used that." Jones winced as Officer Sean Hayes, an instructor at the Chicago Police Academy, tried to unlodge bullets from the gun. The .22 caliber bullets were jammed inside. He even tried using a hammer to remove them, but couldn't. A hammer and 22 rimfire? I don't know that I'd put those two together. But anyway, the article goes on to say, "As in general practice, no questions were asked about the guns, and those who brought them could remain anonymous. All of the weapons will be destroyed." Many of the weapons were older. Some bullets brought in were in a decades-old pharmacy bottle. Another gun was an antique made in 1927 and possibly worth a lot of money. At a media conference Saturday night, SUPT, I'm not quite sure what that is, superintendent maybe? Gary McCarthy noted that an older weapon was used to shoot an officer who was chasing a suspect in March on the south side. Paris Sandler, 20, has been charged with attempted murder in the shooting of Officer Del Pearson, 47, who survived the attack. The gun that shot our officer Del Pearson a couple of months ago was bought in 1972 by a 52-year-old woman who died in 2006 in Little Rock, Arkansas, McCarthy said. "People criticize sometimes these events. They say we don't get the right guns off the street, but the likelihood of these guns being turned in by somebody's parents is much greater than being turned in by one of the gangbangers." At St. Sabina earlier, Johnson agreed that the gun buyback is keeping guns from being used in crimes, and with the level of violence out there, I'm really glad that the city and the department are doing this. At a similar gun turn-in program at the Heritage International Christian Church in Austin, a sign warned people to, quote, "be prepared to wait," end quote, and not to leave the church with a weapon. A man and a woman drove in from Kane County to that event and waited in line for an hour and a half. They said they were happy to get rid of the 3 guns. "There's no use in having those guns in my home," said the man, who asked not to be identified. "If I can make it a little bit safer, well, then by all means I will." And that's the end of the article. So where are the aggravating parts of this whole article? Well, for one, you've got this police chief talking about this antiquated old American Arms or whatever it was, 22 caliber rifle or 22 pistol that was in the back of this old lady's closet. He's talking about it like it's an active street sweeper, like people are going out and committing drive-bys with 22s all the time, this tiny little pistol. And then in the same breath, well, not so much in the same breath, but later on he's saying, "Oh yeah, it was so bad we had to beat on it with a hammer to try to get the bullets out." Yeah, that gun was doing a lot of good. You know, it was great potential for criminal activity right there with that mess of a weapon. In addition, they're touting 5,500 guns were turned in. And then they say, oh, well, people that turned in actual working firearms, or not even working firearms, but actual firearms. In the case of this older woman, she received a $100 MasterCard gift card. So, free money on a plastic card. Anyone that brought in a replica or BB gun received $10. Excuse me. So, even though that those replicas and BB guns weren't hurting anyone on the street, well, maybe they could be used in crimes, but that's kind of beside the point. They're being classified the same as weapons. Are being, people are getting money for those. And at the same time, I bet you they're counting those in the 5,500 turned in guns, 55 murderous weapons off the street. And it's an absolute joke. How many replicas were turned in? How many BB guns were turned in? And how many broken down pieces of antiquated garbage were non-working firearms that were no danger to anyone? I mean, they were paperweight at best. How many of those were turned in? How many actual guns were turned in that could have potentially been used in a crime? Okay, maybe if someone got a hold of that old lady's gun and waved it in front of a store clerk, it would have been involved in a crime. But it's not doing what it's not doing what the city is intending it to do. Well, I guess it is in all. It's all this. I don't know. maybe I should be putting on my tinfoil hat here, but I think it's all just this big scam. What's going on with the city and how they're portraying this gun buyback program. I think it's an absolute waste of time. The only people it benefits are the people with broken down guns that are turning them in for cash. Maybe someone went out and they bought a gun when they didn't know better, or they bought something and it turned out it didn't work, or maybe their great-great-grandfather had left them this old rusty 22 bolt action rifle, single shot kind of a thing, and it's worth $25 at the gun store, or it's worth $100 at the gun buyback program. So I think that those type of people are the only people that are benefiting from this. It's just a feel-good measure at best, as far as I'm concerned. It's not really doing anything to help the community of Chicago. If anything, it is taking weapons away from people that could be then using those weapons to protect themselves and their family from the criminal element that they're trying to keep these guns from in the first place. So now you've just offset the ratio of bad guys with guns and good guys with guns. Now the good guys have less, the bad guys, they're not turning their guns in. Why would they? I mean, unless they want to get rid of a murder weapon, because of course there's no questions asked. But this is getting kind of heated, and I've been going on long enough. So that's going to close out the news for episode 45. This week in featured content, I actually have 3 pieces of interesting stuff I wanted to talk about. One I came across shortly after I posted the podcast last week, so it was kind of carryover. And 2 I came across recently. The first of those 3 comes from When the Balloon Goes Up, and it is on the Carolina Cup. It's an IDPA major match. I don't know if they have like level 2 or level 3 matches in IDPA like they do with USPSA. But at any rate, the Carolina Cup is kind of a big deal in IDPA, and it's a rather large match. It looks like it's 16 stages long, and some of them get kind of elaborate. This particular post outlines the stages, the scenario description of those stages, and it includes a link to some video of the stage. In most of the video links, you have Ron from When the Balloon Goes Up shooting the actual stage. There is a couple where Lee, a friend of Ron's who I've talked about in the past, shoots the same stage, so you can kind of see Ron shoot it one way and then Lee shoot it another. They're different caliber shooters. I don't remember which classification or division Ron is in, but Lee is pretty badass from what I understand or what I've seen. It looks like he really knows his stuff, and it was kind of interesting seeing one guy shoot it versus another guy shooting it, to see the contrasts in divisions or classifications. In addition, there's also some video, there's like a highlight reel of the actual event that was pretty cool. It looks like they did a lot of really interesting stages. One of the things that I've always found appealing about IDPA over USPSA is their use of props. It's not uncommon to see people shooting from inside cars. It's not uncommon to see really elaborate moving targets. In USPSA, the most common movers that I see are swingers that just kind of go out back and forth, swing, 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 and don't stop for quite a while. You have out and backs that are used that are weighted down, so as the target comes out, some weights fall off and then it snaps back. So you have a really small window to shoot them. You have these sort of clamshell targets where you shoot an activator and a penalty target falls away, and you have you can see the actual target you have to shoot, and then the other target sort of snaps back in front of it. You have Texas Stars, which are a 5-pointed star with metal discs on it. You shoot the discs off, and then this thing gets unbalanced and starts moving. You've got Polish plate racks that do all kinds of crazy stuff. But in IDPA, you see some really weird and interesting stuff where maybe you shoot an activator and all of a sudden you get a target that simulates a person charging you, and all of a sudden you have a target coming at you relatively quickly, and I can only imagine the adrenaline dump as this thing comes screaming towards you. The actual target doesn't scream, we're using it as an adjective here where it's coming at you quickly, but it's some really interesting stuff. Again, I'm kind of getting into it. I want to get out. I want to try an IDPA match for myself. But head on over to When the Balloon Goes Up and check out all of the stage video. It's interesting. He's got really good breakdowns for the scenarios and stuff. It looks like everything was copied from the pamphlet they were given, or the booklet they were given when the match started. But really good, solid article on what happened at the Carolina Cup and the stages that needed to be shot. The second piece of featured content comes from Everyday No Days Off, and it is a continuation of a post that I saw last week. And last week, I was browsing Everyday No Days Off, and I came across this video of the gun store guys. They put together this ridiculous AR-15. They say that they were doing it to show the versatility of the rifle, and then they talk about, sort of the ultimate zombie killer rifle. It's an AR-15 with just a whole bunch of magazines stacked horizontally. Well, they're standing vertical, but they're stacked side by side, and they're sort of all coupled together so that you could pop this whole bunch of magazines out of the gun, shift it over, and then reinsert it. So I think there were about 9 of them. And then he's got these horizontal magazine storage clips where you sort of clip 2 more to the gun, and they sort of stick out like wings, and you've got this mess underneath. And then on top, he's got like 3 different lasers. He's got like 4 flashlights. He's got a couple of different red dots set up for varying distance. So he's got like, 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards. And then on one of them, he's got a magnifier. He's got a bipod. This thing is just incredible. It's completely over the top. I've never seen anything like this so over the top. And they're in the store and they're talking about this rifle, and I kind of got a kick out of it. It was fun. It was kind of cool. It does go a long way in showing the versatility of the rifle itself. How many accessories are available and how many accessories you can pile onto this thing. So I'm checking out Everyday No Days Off. Actually, I don't remember whether it was yesterday or today, but I saw a follow-up video to this, and the gun store guys are out at the range, and I think his name is Eric. One of the gun store guys decides to do some shooting. So he's gotten the rifle and he's shooting it from the hip, and he's going round after round after round. He's popping the magazine out, putting a new one in. He runs through that. He cycles over and over and over again. I think they said that in total, the ammunition alone on the gun was like 23 pounds. It was 200 and something rounds, and it looked like he went through every one of those rounds in the video. I think it runs like 4, maybe 5 minutes long. And it's funny because after a while, he's shooting it from the hip, and after a while you can see it's getting heavy. It looks like the gun's starting to dip a little bit. He's shooting a little bit slower. He's sort of, he's shifting his shoulders. It looks like the weight of the gun is really getting to him, and it's kind of funny. It's almost as if he just can't pull the trigger fast enough, because every time he do, the gun sheds a little weight and it injects that round and spits some lead down range, and it lightens it up by just that little bit. It was amazing to see this thing in action. Totally ridiculous gun, but I don't know. Like he says in the video, you can't be awesome without owning that gun. Over the top, yes. Awesome? Absolutely. In a hideous, only a mother could love it kind of way. It's the ugliest, most beautiful thing I've ever seen. The last piece of featured content actually comes with a little bit of a story, which kind of ties it all together and makes it amusing. So, earlier this month, I was shooting the June USPSA match at Southern Chester County Sportsmen and Farmers Association in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. After the match concluded, it's usually kind of busy. Everyone's getting in their cars and leaving. You've got a handful of people that are just kind of standing around talking. You've got people walking in and out of the parking lot area. So a lot of times we'll just kind of hang out and wait for the traffic to die down a little bit before we leave. So I walked back to the clubhouse. I grabbed a soda out of the vending machine. I came back and we were just kind of talking about guns and what we were going to be doing next year for USPSA, because I'm sort of on the fence about getting a Glock 34 and changing up from my current Glock 17. And some of the guys from Team Custom Gun Finishes were getting on me about getting a customized Glock 34 with Troy from Custom Gun Finish, and they're saying, we want to do this with our guns, we want to do that with our guns. Next year you should go with the Walt theme, because your name's Walt. You just have to do a gun in black and yellow and make it look like a screw gun. Maybe you can get Troy to do something with the magazine so that it looks like a battery. You've got to do this. And I'm thinking, you're absolutely crazy. I'm not into over-the-top stuff like that. My gun is, it's got a digital camo pattern on it now, but it's very conservative compared to Tactical Cheetah and this goddess purple thing that our friend Rich has. But they're trying to talk me into getting this black and yellow DeWalt style gun. No, you definitely have to do it. You've got to do it. Oh, yeah, right. And there's no way I'm doing that. So eventually we end up leaving, and then shortly afterwards I came across a post on Everyday No Days Off about a DeWalt styled Glock. I don't remember which Glock model it was, but it looks just like the drill. It's, well, not exactly like the drill, but very close. The whole gun is done up in black and yellow. It says DeWalt down the side. There's actually the magazine has like a big base built onto it. It looks like a removable battery. I don't know how much extra weight this thing adds to it, but it looks like it's got a big 18-volt battery. In addition, where the guide rod is, it looks like they've attached a drill bit somehow. So sticking out of the gun has this drill bit that sort of pops in and off. Obviously you don't shoot it with the drill bit in there, but it's a very good replica of a DeWalt drill. And I thought it was kind of funny because here these guys are getting on me about getting this customized DeWalt gun for next year. And no, that thing would look hideous. It actually looks really cool. I wouldn't shoot it, but I wouldn't walk around with it in a holster, but it looks really cool, and you should definitely head over to Everyday No Days Off and check out Glock X DeWalt Drilled to Perfection, or DeWalt Drilled Perfection 2. It is time for the cigar and drink pairing of the episode, and I want to try to pick up the pace in general. It's the end of June. It was kind of warm to start, and I've been sitting under these lights for 40-some minutes now, and I feel like I'm starting to cook, so I want to sort of move right along so that I'm not under these lights much more than I have to. I don't want to be under these lights much longer than I have to. So, with that said, the beverage, I've got to be crazy for drinking coffee in this heat, but I'm doing it anyway. It's Donut Shop coffee. I've talked about it before. There's really no need to talk about it anymore. It's just readily available stuff for the Keurig brewing system, and you can buy it at your local grocery store. It's a good solid cup of coffee, and I really enjoy it. The cigar, on the other hand, is something that's a little bit special. It is the Davidoff Selection 702, which is a limited edition 2009 cigar. I got this cigar a couple of years ago at the 2009 IPCPR trade show in New Orleans. And when it was given to me, I didn't really know much about it. I just kind of tossed it in my shirt pocket, thanked Davidoff for giving me the cigar, and I didn't really learn anything about it until I decided to do a review on it. They gave me 2 or 3 of them to smoke, one of which apparently got tucked away in my humidor. I didn't find it until this evening. And the 702 portion of the name is in reference to the wrapper. I don't remember what it is, but these only came in one size, and that is the Toro Especial, which is a 48 by 6 5/8. It's got an Ecuadorian sun-grown 702 wrapper. Again, I don't know what the significance of the 702 wrapper is. The binder information isn't listed, but the filler is Piloto, Olor, and San Vicente fillers. I'm guessing it's all from the Dominican Republic, where the Davidoff farm is, the Davidoff factory. But at any rate, these cigars run a whopping $26 a piece, and that is pre-tax. So it's $26 plus whatever your state excise tax is, plus sales tax and all that stuff. So you're looking at, depending on where you're at, most likely between a $26 cigar and maybe $35 at the high end. But very expensive cigar, very high quality cigar. I really do enjoy these. It's not something I ever went out looking for. I enjoyed those earlier cigars. I'm enjoying this one a lot. But again, it's a real high dollar cigar. It's not something that I can afford to just run out and pick up. It is at the higher end of the Davidoff line. It has a very unique sort of leathery taste about it that sets it apart from the more grassy Davidoff offerings. It doesn't taste like your typical Davidoff. Smoke volume's good. It's burning really well. Nice even burn line. It's pretty clean. I'm not getting a lot of flaking off the ash or anything like that. So it's behaving really well. It's smoking well. The smoke volume is good. It's been sitting for a few years, so the flavors have settled down a little bit more than I remember. Ideally, the cigar probably should have been smoked last year. Letting cigars age for too long, they tend to lose a little bit each year that they sit. And in this case, I think it's sat maybe a year too long. I think it would have been more enjoyable last year had the flavors been a little more, I don't know, powerful, I guess is the best way to describe it. So all in all, really good cigar. I don't know if you'll ever be able to buy these things again unless someone has a box lying around. But if you're interested in trying Davidoff product, excuse me, my preferred retailer is a big Davidoff guy. He moves a lot of Davidoff product, and I think he's got most of what they offer at his shop in Buckhead Cigars in Atlanta, Georgia. If you're interested in trying to pick up the phone and give Mike a call at 404-844-0400. Mike also has a website at askthecigarguys.com. It's not a retail site. It's just a listing of some of the newer product that Mike has, some of the newer products that Mike has, and some of the stuff that he's running specials on. Everything listed is listed in 5-pack or box pricing. Shipping is included with all of those prices. So what you see is what you pay. If you're interested in just kind of feeling Mike out, talking to him a little bit, you can do so on social media. He's on Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus as Buckhead Cigar. So not only will you be supporting a fellow cigar guy by purchasing from Buckhead Cigars, but Mike is also a big gun nut as well. So, you know, support both causes, cigars and guns, by purchasing from Mike down at Buckhead Cigars in Atlanta, Georgia. For the discussion portion of this episode, I want to answer an email that I received last week. It was in regards to competitive shooting, but the email came in from Brett, and he goes on to say, "My name is Brett, and I'm a fan of your podcast. I live in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, Montgomery County, so I'm in the same relative area as you. I listen to most of the shows on the Gun Rights Radio Network, and was excited to see a local show. And with Pennsylvania being a pretty big state, it's even more cool that you're in my neck of the woods. I have 2 questions for you after listening to episode 44. The first is, where can I go to get started in shooting matches? And what are the basics in getting started? I'm 28 and have been shooting pistol for 3 years now, and the main gun I use is a stock Beretta 92 FS. I practice 2 to 3 times a week at the state game lands in Allentown, and practice at 50 yards, being that that's the shortest range that they have available. Once a month I go to an indoor range to practice close range shooting. Do I need to be sponsored to shoot, and if so, would there be an option to join Team Custom Gun Finishes, or is that a private team? Any insight on any insight and information would be much appreciated in a future episode or a return email. Thanks for what you do for the shooting sports, and love the show. Keep up the good work, Brett." So we'll just kind of step through this, you know, step by step. It's really cool that I was contacted by a fellow Pennsylvanian. Pennsylvania is pretty big, and I don't know. I guess it's about a 5-hour car ride from the eastern side of Pennsylvania to the western side. So I rarely get out to the western side of Pennsylvania because of how far it is. So the fact that he is on the same side of Pennsylvania as me is really cool, and the fact that he's in Montgomery County, which is the next county over, is pretty cool as well. I've also talked to a guy from York, Pennsylvania, and I really need to get out and shoot a steel match with him. He seems to be doing a lot of the steel matches at York IWLA. I've shot a couple of USPSA matches there, but I just haven't been able to get out and shoot a steel match yet. So, it's really cool that he's in the area. A couple of questions about the shooting sports. So, what do you need to do to get into shooting matches? Well, the first thing you need to do is determine what type of matches you want to shoot. With a Beretta 92 FS, you have a variety of options. You can shoot the steel sports, steel challenge and such, which is basically standing in a static position and shooting 5 plates as fast as possible. I think you shoot those 5 plates 5 times. They throw out your worst time, and they average your 4 or something like that, and that's your score. And I think you do 5 stages that are relatively similar. I think only one has movement from one box to another, and there are a lot of options for that. You don't have to just shoot your Beretta. You can shoot rimfire there. You can shoot with optics and things like that. You don't have to draw from a holster. You can do low ready position with rimfire, things like that. So that is an option. Being that you're shooting a Beretta 92 FS, you're probably not interested in I-Core, which is a revolver sport. You also have IDPA as an option, which is it's a shooting sport that relies heavily on practical scenarios or real life simulations where, for instance, the stage description may say, you're standing in an ATM machine withdrawing money when such and such a bad guy approaches and his buddies come from this way, and you need to engage these targets and clear the stage in such and such a manner. So it's more real life based, where the sport is trying to get you to see a defensive scenario in your mind and play it out with paper targets. I believe you need roughly 3 magazines for IDPA. Your Beretta 92 FS should not be a problem in that sport, but again, I don't shoot IDPA, so I really don't know the finer points of the rules. There are a handful of listeners that shoot IDPA actively. Hopefully they will be able to chime in and correct any errors that I may have given you for IDPA. Your other option is USPSA, which is it's a lot like IDPA, except for the courses seem to be much larger. So for instance, IDPA may have a stage with, I don't know, we'll say 5 targets, a total of 10 rounds. And maybe that's a large course of fire, 10, 12 rounds. Again, I really don't know for sure. But a large course of fire in USPSA is 32 rounds. It can be a mixture of steel and paper. It could be all paper. And the stages tend to be a little bit larger, so there's a lot more movement. And the really big difference between the two is IDPA pretty much maps out how you are to engage the stage, and each shooter it's dictated to each shooter how they're going to engage these targets or how they're going to move about the scenario or the stage. In USPSA, more often than not, you're given a stage briefing that says, okay, this is what the stage is, this is how many targets there are, this is, these are your boundary lines, have at it. The buzzer goes off and you make up your own game plan and you engage the targets in the way that you think will be the fastest, most accurate way for you to engage all of those targets. All of these games are speed and accuracy based. It's about being as fast and as accurate as possible, and that's kind of how you win. With USPSA, you would be shooting, I believe, production division. There is a limitation with the Beretta 92 in USPSA in that the hammer must be down at the start of the stage. So when you draw the gun and you go to shoot that first target, you're going to have a double action trigger pull. I used to shoot with a guy that shot, or I still do shoot with a guy that used to shoot a 92 FS. He has since moved to a Springfield XDM 5.25, but he used to have a lot of problems with that long double action trigger pull in the beginning. I mean, it got to the point where he would just throw that gun out there and just point it at the point it in the relative direction of the targets and just yank on the trigger and crank off a round, and then begin engaging the stage with that lighter single action pull. So, there are some limitations there. I don't know how IDPA dictates you are to use that gun. I know that in USPSA, if there is a decocker, you have to use it. You have to decock the gun and start with double action. So that's kind of the limitation with the gun. With USPSA, it's recommended that you shoot with 4 or 5 magazines. So there's more equipment that's required in terms of shooting your first match. Bring plenty of ammunition. Bring your gun in some sort of case. If you go walking onto the range with the gun in your hand, that's a major problem, and most of the sports will send you home as a disqualification for handling a gun on a cold range. So bring your gun in some form of case. It can be one of those zipper cases. It can be the case that it came in. Doesn't quite matter. You also need a holster that covers the trigger guard. You will need magazine carriers for however many magazines you're going to be using. With IDPA, you can probably use a double magazine pouch and keep a spare in a pocket and load it into the gun. I'm not quite sure how IDPA uses that. With USPSA, you can just sort of load up your side with magazine pouches. I carry 5 on my waist, and I put a 6th in the gun. So again, more equipment for USPSA because the stages are larger. You can get away with using less, but you're limited to 10 rounds. If you're shooting production division, if you're shooting limited, you can load up the gun with as many rounds as the magazine can carry. Aside from that, you don't really need to bring a whole lot. Obviously, eye protection, ear protection, some sort of range bag would be helpful. Range bag could be anything from one of those cloth type supermarket bags with your crap tossed in it, or it could be just a full-blown range bag full with your cleaning supplies and all your other miscellaneous crap that I tend to carry around, and it makes my range bag weigh probably 60 pounds, and it's probably 50 pounds heavier than it needs to be. But really all you need is a gun, a holster, magazine pouches, ears and eyes, spare magazines, and that little bit of competitive drive that makes you go to the match. I know a lot of people get really intimidated and they're really slow to go to their first match. I was kind of the same way. I wanted that little bit of a support system. I wanted a friend to go with me so that I had that little bit of a support group so that I knew someone, but I couldn't find anyone that was willing to go. Everyone seemed to be a little intimidated. They didn't want to sort of jump in like I did, and I ended up just going by myself, had a great time, met a bunch of great people, and I haven't looked back since. I'm shooting 2 matches a month, and if I can start reloading and save some money with ammunition costs, I might even try to mix in a 3rd match next year. That's kind of up in the air. It's a lot of time investment. My wife would rather I did not mix in a 3rd match, but the option could certainly be there if I started reloading my own ammunition. The larger the match, the more ammunition, which in turn ups the price. Match fees, we pay about $20 to shoot a USPSA match. I don't know what IDPA charges. I don't know what Steel Challenge is, anything like that. Again, I'm giving you more information for USPSA because that's what I shoot. So we gave you options on selecting sports, gave you options, or gave you idea what you need to bring. As far as being on a shooting team, absolutely not. The shooting team that we have is pretty informal. It's just the same 4 guys that go out and shoot all the time. We just happened to find someone that was willing to give us a few extra rounds to shoot with and give us shirts with their names on the back. So we go out there as Team Custom Gun Finishes, we shoot, we have a good time. If anyone asks about the work that's done to our guns, we talk about it, and that's kind of what Team Custom Gun Finishes is. It's nothing special. It's not like we're this overly competitive team or this very competitive team where we're striving to be the top team in the division or the top shooters in the division. It's very laid back, easygoing. But being on a team is not necessary at all. Just go out there and be willing to shoot a lot and have fun. And that pretty much covers your entire email. So get out there, shoot, have fun. If you're in the Montgomery County area and you want to shoot USPSA, send me an email. In Lansdale, you're in Montgomery County, you're probably pretty close to Lower Providence Rod and Gun Club. It's out near Norristown. I guess it's between Norristown and King of Prussia. Shoot me an email. I shoot there the first Saturday of every month. I'll be there the first Saturday in July, which I think is the 6th or 7th. If that doesn't work out for you, I shoot the third Saturday of every month at Southern Chester County Sportsmen's and Farmers Association, which is in Kennett Square. It's a bit further, but they do a really nice match down there. Again, both matches cost $20, and you can expect to shoot anywhere between probably 200 and 250 rounds. 200 is probably a lot, or 200 rounds is probably a high estimate. If you're planning on missing, bring extra. So count on 200 minimum. 250 rounds would be a nice, comfortable ammunition count to have. You'll probably go home with extra rounds. I usually bring 200, and I go home with 25, 30 rounds, depending on what the minimum round count is for the match. But I don't know what else I can say. Hopefully this little discussion was beneficial to anyone that's looking at getting into the shooting sports. If I've misspoken or misstated anything, please feel free to chime in either in the comment section on YouTube, the comment section on my blog, or anywhere else that this podcast is posted, and correct me. Before I close out the show, actually, it just dawned on me that I left out two very big options as far as shooting is concerned. NRA offers a lot of different sports. They have precision handgun sports. I don't remember what it's, some form of bullseye. It's very slow paced and accuracy driven. So if running around with a gun isn't something that appeals to you, there are NRA options available for that are just based solely on precision. If precision is your game, NRA is where to look for that. If all of this sounds too competitive, a lot of different clubs do fun matches. Basically, it's just a couple of people that get together, or a bunch of people that get together, and everyone shoots and has a good time. It's very laid back. A lot of times they don't keep score. You're shooting odd things, bowling pins, steel plates, whatever. They just have you shoot different things from different distances, different scenarios. Sometimes there's a little bit of movement, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's structured where everyone's on the firing line, and you're shooting it playing cards. It's just a mixed bag of fun stuff to shoot at. So again, if the other sports seem too competitive, you can always look to your local club, if you have one, and see if there's a fun shoot option, because a lot of clubs do that fun shoot format for just that reason. For those people that aren't interested in that competitive environment of USPSA or IDPA or Steel Challenge or whatever sport you decide. So there is your extra couple of options that I totally forgot to mention earlier. But with that said, it's about time to wrap up the podcast. I'm cooking under these lights. I just want to turn them off. But when I turn them off, you'll never be able to see me on the camera. So again, thank you for checking out episode 45 of Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of WaltInPA.com. If I've said something that's interested you, or said something that needs correction, and you want to do so via email, please feel free to hop on over to WaltInPA.com, the newly designed WaltInPA.com, which is more geared towards firearms at this point. It was kind of a hodgepodge of different things, and I've installed a new layout and brought all the firearms topics to the forefront. And it just looks much nicer, and it works out a whole lot better for all the match video that I post. I can do these big giant HD videos now. But there's a contact button up top. Click on that. It'll bring you to a page with all the information on it that you need to reach me. If you want to take the easiest option, just fill in the boxes, click submit. It will fire off an email. If not, there's information on how to reach me on Twitter, Facebook, and Google+. Basically, it's Walt White on Google+. It is facebook.com/WaltInPA for Facebook, and Walt W for Twitter. I'm also on the Gun Rights Radio Network. I have a Shooting the Breeze subsection where I will post a new topic every time a new episode comes out. You can use that topic to discuss the show, ask questions, do whatever you like. And I think that about does it for the contact options. The Gun Rights Radio Network can still use some donations if you've got a couple of bucks in your pocket that you don't mind donating to the Gun Rights Radio Network. In the show notes, I'll have a donate button. You can click on it. It will take you over to the Gun Rights Radio Network, and you can handle your donation completely through the Gun Rights Radio Network. You don't do it through my blog. I'll just redirect you to the network, and you can do it there. Subscriptions are $2 a month or $24 a year. All that funding goes towards keeping the servers running, keeping the shows going, and that sort of thing. Basically just keeping the lights on at the network. So that's going to do it. Again, thanks for checking out episode 45 of Shooting the Breeze, and until next time, take it easy.
You can hear Gun Rights Radio Network on Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher allows you to listen to your favorite shows directly from your iPhone, Android phone, BlackBerry, or Palm phones, on demand and on the go. Don't have Stitcher? Download it for free today at Stitcher.com or in the app stores. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio. Gun Rights Radio Network shows can be found under Sources.